It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the USA Olympian Luge Summer Britcher. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing about that? I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in the sport of luge?
So luge is kind of a niche sport. Not kind of, it's definitely a niche sport. It's definitely something you kind of come across by accident almost. I grew up playing sports, being into sports. I played soccer, I skied, just loved like playing any sports with my brothers. And I was skiing one day with my family at Ski Liberty in Pennsylvania, and the United States Luge Association was hosting an event there, just this like fun luge event, kind of to like showcase one of their sponsors at the time and make a fun event out of it. And they put a professional timing system into just like a sledding course on the ski hill, and I had a blast. I kept walking up over and over again, trying to beat my time and beat my brothers. And I was just the right age for recruitment into the development program and fairly competitive. So the head of marketing, Gordy Shear, was at the event, and he was a retired luge athlete. And he went up to my parents and he said, "Hey, I think your daughter has potential in this sport, just seeing her attitude and everything. So it would be cool if you could send her up to Lake Placid, New York to try out for the team." To me at the time, it just seemed like, wow, this is something that's fun. And I really like sports, and maybe I could go to the Olympics one day, but that was so far in the future. I was more so focused on the fact that I was going to get out of school for a week to go try this cool new sport. So I went up to Lake Placid, tried it out, and just kind of fell in love, and was lucky enough to make the United States development team that spring of 2006, I think. So it just kind of all came together, and slowly from there snowballed into more of a professional endeavor.
What was it like, obviously, being the youngest member of the Olympic team in 2014?
So I was the youngest woman on the team, and then two of the men's athletes were younger than me. But it was, in a lot of ways, really stressful, but in a lot of ways I also had kind of no burden. Being the youngest member of the team and also quite an underdog going into it, there wasn't a lot of expectation for me to do well. People were fairly shocked that I made the team. So being able to go take in the whole experience, learn a lot about what it is to compete in the Olympics, and just really embrace that competitive moment without having any really external pressure, was a true blessing of my career that I haven't really known since, because after that people started expecting quite a lot from me, which also has its own benefits. But yeah, I had some incredibly supportive teammates, and I was able to watch them and really learn what it takes to do well, and take what I saw from them forward into my career. And I'm very lucky that I was able to make the team in 2014.
What's it like, obviously, moving to Lake Placid to train to become an Olympian?
Well, for one thing, when it was like 10 years ago, actually just about exactly 10 years ago, that I moved full time to Lake Placid. I've been up there most of the time for 14 years now, but 10 years ago I moved up full time, and I try to remember what it was like at the time. I just graduated high school, and I had made the decision of, okay, I'm gonna defer college for some number of years so I can really put full-time effort into pursuing this luge thing and hopefully make an Olympic team. So I was really excited. I think I was just the timing of it. I was 18, fresh out of high school. So I think it was also just feeling like I was going to be truly off on my own for the first time, even though I had been kind of living off my own for a while by that point. But on a different scale, it was moving from on a different scale, I was moving from one small town to another small town. So it was something I was very comfortable with. It was a town I had already really lived in for a couple years, just not technically. So yeah, I feel like I almost feel like Lake Placid's a hometown as much as my hometown of Glen Rock, that I kind of grew up in both.
What was it like, obviously, competing for the Juniors World Championship and the Youth Championship?
So let's see. Now I'm feeling really old. My last junior world championship was in 2014. I was still a junior athlete when I qualified for the 2014 Olympics. So I finished up the World Cup season, my first World Cup season in the 13-14 season. And then from there, I went to Eagles, Austria for my final junior world championships. And at that point, I think I'm trying to remember what I didn't do very well in it, all things considered. That year in the World Cup, I had gotten 8th place in Eagles, and then I went back for Junior Worlds, and I was so full of myself. I just qualified for the Olympics. And I got an 8th place in a World Cup, which is a much higher level than Junior World Championships. And I went back and I got 5th place in Junior World Championships. And at the time I was like, oh, I expected I should have done so much better. But looking back on it now with some perspective, like that's still a great accomplishment. But I think I just expected always to be doing better and better and better. So it's definitely a huge honor competing in any major event in sport or in anything really is a huge honor, just to see that your hard work has paid off. But yes, that was a long time ago. You're really testing my memory with these questions.
Of course, what was it like competing in your first Olympics in 2014?
It was incredible. I just kind of rehashed all these memories. Yesterday was Olympic Day. And so I was going through old photos, and just, it can be tough to stay super joyful throughout a really long sports career, just because competing in 2014 was really incredible. I was just going through some old photos of 2014 and 2018 and more recently 2022, and I could just see kind of a stark difference in my own face. And in every picture from 2014, I am just so full of joy. There was no jadedness about me. I was just so thrilled to be competing, just taking part in the act of competing. And I think I remember taking my first run in the Olympics. Luge is a sport where it's 4 runs total combined for the Olympics. And taking that first run, I was so nervous at the top, terrified. And there was this tiny little camera that was like right up in my face that I hadn't really seen. Like, our World Cups were broadcasted, but not with this fancy little camera that got right up in my face. And I couldn't not look at it. I was like, don't look at the camera, don't look at the camera. People are going to think you're not focused if you're like, just so many distracted thoughts, because I had never competed at that level before. And I was so scared, just not of my actual run. I knew what I was doing, but just so scared of the whole environment and experience. And I took that first run, and I crossed the finish line, and coming up the outrun, it was the biggest shift in just so much nerves to just being so happy, because in that moment I became an Olympian. Coming up the outrun, my family was there, they were in the stands, all my teammates' families were there, people were cheering, and it was just such a special moment. And I thought, wow, I get to do this 3 more times this weekend. That's incredible. So it was a ton of fun.
Of course, what was it like training for your next Olympics after your first Olympics in 2014?
After 2014, I felt an extreme surge of motivation to train for 2018. I had been considering retiring after the 2014 Olympics, just because I wanted to go to college, and I was kind of doubtful of my ability to succeed internationally and my team's ability to succeed internationally, just because we hadn't been seeing a ton of success. But then in the 2014 Olympics, I was able to be there and watch as my teammate Erin Hamlin took home a bronze medal. And I said, okay, wow, we can do this. We can medal. I can do this. So I was just extremely motivated. I knew I had tons of room for improvement. And so I went into probably the hardest summer of training of my life, more so than before the 2014 Olympics. I said, me and a couple of my teammates, we were like, this is the big difference between now and when I was like 19 is we were so motivated. We were like, all those older athletes are going to be taking it easy. It's the first year in the quad. They're seeing it as a year to relax. And we're going to attack. We're going to come in so strong, they're not going to know what's hit them. So we trained super hard that year, and we were able to see, at least I was able to see like massive improvements in those first 2 years of training in the 2018 Olympic quad.
What was that feeling like making the Olympic team for the second time in 2018?
So in 2018, I was coming off of 2 very successful seasons. I had been 5th in the world and like won a couple races. And then the next year I finished maybe 9th or 10th. I don't really know, something up there. And then going into the 2017-2018 season, I just was not concerned about qualifying for the Olympic team. I sort of set my sights more on succeeding at the Olympics. A lot of athletes get really stressed about, I need to qualify. And I said, I know what I'm capable of. I've been getting these results steadily. These results will easily qualify me. I am looking to just crush it on the World Cup season and go succeed at the Olympics. And it was a pretty solid mindset. I had pretty good success that year on World Cup. I ended up finishing 3rd in the world in the overall rankings and won 2 races that year, I think. So I pretty solidly, I think the second World Cup of the season, I locked in or nearly locked in my spot for the Olympics. So just actively taking that stress off my shoulders of being like, I believe in my abilities. Before 2014, it was just like down to the last second, impossible battle to barely qualify in the final little moment. And I was the underdog. And going into 2018, I just said, I don't have any room for that doubt. I know that I'm capable of this. I'm setting my sights on performing at the games.
Of course, how was it like training from 2018 to the 2022 Olympics and making that team?
It was a lot harder training after the 2018 Olympics. I went into the 2018 Olympics with a chance to medal, a chance to do really well. And unfortunately, I made some mistakes and I just wasn't able to put together a good performance on race day. And that's sport, that happens. But I took it pretty hard. I lost a lot of motivation and I kind of knew that things were going to be hard for a while. And I was just getting through it. My habits of training were able to get me through it. I still showed up to train every day. I still did all my workouts. I still showed up to races. I still had fairly good success. I finished 3rd in the world again that first year of that quad, but I just wasn't really excited about it for the first 2 years. I was just I didn't really want to be there, but I said, I know I'm going to want to be here. And I just have to get through this to get back to who I normally am, which is someone who's really excited to be competing. And I finally got to that place in February of 2020. I was like, wow, I'm really feeling like myself again. And my coaches were like, wow, it's so good to have you back. You seem really good. Like, this is great. And then a month later, the pandemic happened and the whole world shut down. And that was the second 2 years of my quad preparing for 2022 was dealing with a global pandemic and travel issues and being kept out of races and because of my organization choosing not to compete. So it was a tough 4 years. Happy to be on the other side of it now. Hopefully going into this next quad will be a little more fun.
Of course, what was that like, obviously, after those 2 years of taking a break, making the Olympic team and going, obviously, to Beijing?
So I didn't take a break. I should have taken a break, but I didn't take a break. I just wasn't really happy to be training. I still did train. I just didn't really want to be there. But my team, my organization decided in the 2020-2021 season to not compete in the first half of the World Cup season. So we did take a break for the first half of that season and just trained back home. And that was extremely challenging, largely because, one, to be missing out on those races when I finally really wanted to be competing again, but also just not really having a say in the matter. It wasn't a choice that was up to me. And yeah, it was hard to kind of face that I didn't really have a ton of control of my own career. So that was tough to be motivated going into the second part of the quad preparing for the 2022 Olympics.
What was that feeling like of getting to live out your Olympic dream, not just once, but 3 times?
It's weird because each time that I've competed in the Olympics has felt very different. I definitely feel like the only time I really lived out my Olympic dream was in 2014. I had the magical fairy tale version that every athlete dreams of. And I know not every athlete in their first Olympics or any Olympics is lucky to have such a great experience and to just have everything kind of happen in such a positive way, or be able to take it in a positive way. But going into the other Olympics, I was certainly very happy and blessed to be there. But I had my sights set a little higher. For me, in these past two Olympics, my Olympic dream was to bring home a medal. And while I didn't bring home a medal, my only takeaway is that I know that I did everything that I knew at the time in my power possible to work towards that goal. So hopefully, if I stick around for another 4 years, maybe I'll see that second Olympic dream come true.
Of course, what were some of your favorite memories and moments during the Olympics?
Let's see. In 2014, my favorite memory was probably opening ceremonies, just walking out into that crowd for the first time. In 2018, my favorite memories would be I was in the stadium. I got to watch the women's gold medal hockey match and see Team USA win gold over Team Canada. And that was really awesome and really special. And in 2022, I think it's tough because everything was shut down. We weren't able to really do much of anything. I think just the way my team kind of came together in those tough circumstances to support each other and just really intentionally be as positive as possible in less than ideal circumstances.
Of course, what was it like for you in 2022 going to the Olympics and not having your family with you after you went to the Olympics twice with your family?
It definitely would have been nice to have my family there, but it wasn't too upsetting for me just because I was lucky enough to have already competed 2 times and have my family there and have my family supporting me. So it was almost like less of a distraction, just knowing it's a weird amount of pressure when your family spends so much money to come watch you halfway across the world. It's like, oh man, I have to do well, not only for myself and my coaches and my team and my sponsors and my country, it's like, and my family, but they came all the way over here. I really have to do well. So a lot of like veteran athletes that I've talked to agree with me that it was kind of, we missed our families and it would have been nice to have them there, but it was weirdly a little bit less pressure to compete without them there. But I feel very bad for the athletes who it was their first Olympics, that they missed out on the experience of having their family share the moment with them.
Does it feel to have the Olympic rings on your jersey?
It's a huge honor. Unfortunately, because of rights issues, I can't actually put the rings on any other time than during the Olympics. But I know that I'm an Olympian and I've earned those rings. I don't have a lot of athletes get an Olympic rings tattoo. I don't think that's for me, but yeah, I have a little ring that I wear sometimes that has the Olympic rings on it. And so I wear that around. I'm very proud of it.
What was it like, obviously, getting to stand in front of the Olympic rings and knowing that all your hard work paid off?
It was incredible. Growing up, training in an Olympic training center, those rings are everywhere. They're branded on the weightlifting platforms. They're in the gym floor. They're on signs and banners in the cafeteria where we get our food in between training. So to finally, you're surrounded by it, that motivation at all sides. And so to finally be able to wear the Olympic rings and say, okay, and stand next to the Olympic rings and say, I'm an Olympian, I'm a part of this. It's incredible.
Of course, how does it feel to have Olympian behind your last name?
It's fantastic. And that's, I think, the post-nominal, OLY as a post-nominal, like an official post-nominal edition is, I think that was added just a couple of years ago. It was acknowledged as like something you could really put and get recognition for. So that's been really cool. I have it on my LinkedIn profile. Yeah, it's great. A lot of times people will mess up the language around being an Olympian and they'll say, oh, like this athlete who was an Olympian or a former Olympian, but it's once an Olympian, always an Olympian, never past tense, always present.
What does it mean to be a Luge athlete?
What does it mean to be a Luge athlete? I think being a Luge athlete just means that being a Luge athlete at this level means that I was lucky enough to find a sport that I love, but also that is a good fit for me. I've dedicated a lot of time. My family's dedicated a lot of time and energy over the years. My friends have been incredibly supportive. So just being any athlete at a high level, it means that not only from the athlete, but from an entire support system, so much has gone into it. And it's just it's an honor, and I'm super lucky that I get to be an athlete.
Of course, for my listeners that don't know about the sport of luge, can you tell them, of course, what luge is?
So luge is a Winter Olympic sport. It is a racing sport timed to the thousandth of a second that takes place on a sled going down a track of ice on banked curves, usually around a mile long.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, getting in the sled and going tenths of a mile?
So we go about, I think the fastest I've gone on a sled is 80 miles per hour. Normally, on average, I'd say I'm going around 70 miles per hour while training and competing. So it's everything kind of slows down when things are going right, really blending into the moment, executing my steers in the right spots, building pressure in the right spots is something we say when talking about like luge specific. Competing in a sport timed to the thousandth of a second where you're trying to get every tiny little bit of the second off your downtime and going 80 miles per hour. When something goes wrong, it goes very wrong. So it's exhilarating to just be totally in control and yet totally on edge all at the same time.
Of course, who are some of the people that you look up to in the sport of luge?
I think I look up to the people that I see kind of taking an effort to make a positive impact within the sport and outside of the sport. So I have some coaches that are incredible coaches. They were great athletes in their time, Bengt Walden and Lubomic, and they, I've been working with them for years, and they care so much about helping the next generation succeed. Me and my teammates, super lucky to have them, and so just seeing that, I think it's really cool to see that they put in so much time and effort to succeed, and now they want to kind of share that with the next generation of athletes.
Who are some of the influential people in your career?
I would say the most influential people in my career have been my teammates. Specifically, when I was younger, my older teammates, Aaron Hamlin, Chris Masder, Matt Mortensen, Jason Turtibin, they all had a huge influence on my career, just because they were people that in the day-to-day I looked up to see, okay, what are especially my first couple of years on the World Cup team, what are the expectations of us? What are we actually expected to do to perform well? How do I get to the level that you're competing at? How do I qualify for an Olympic team? And just having them there, they were always incredibly supportive. Could ask them questions. Sometimes I wouldn't ask and they would see that I needed an answer anyway, and they would still help me out. So they've been a huge influence on my career.
Looking back on your career as a luge athlete, what would you tell your younger self looking back on?
I would tell my younger self to not be too hard on myself, and also to actually listen to the advice that my older teammates were trying to give me. Now that I'm an older athlete on the team, sometimes I want to give advice to my younger teammates, and I want to just go in one ear and out the other. And I think, man, I owe an apology to a few of my old teammates. I know they were giving me good advice, but I certainly wasn't listening to it. So I wish I had listened a bit more, because sometimes you just want to learn things all by yourself, but your life would be a lot easier if you just listen to the advice from the people close to you.
Of course, what are some of your future plans in the sport of luge?
I am not sure. I'm figuring that out right now.
What advice would you give future Olympians looking to get started for the first time?
I would say find something that you enjoy, work hard, but don't miss out on too many other opportunities in your quest for success.
What advice would you give luge professional athletes looking to make it to the Olympic level?
I'd say kind of the same advice. Make sure it's something you actually enjoy. I've met I've met a couple of young athletes in luge and other sports who I've gotten the impression they don't always actually enjoy what they're doing. They have this goal. They've decided they want to be Olympians, or they want to make it to World Cup, or they have these goals. And I think it's important, whether you're a luge athlete or a soccer athlete or a skier or whatever you're doing, to stop and take kind of notice of yourself and say, is this what I really want to be doing? And if the answer is no, have the courage to be done. And if the answer is yes, then give it absolutely everything you have.
What advice would you give first-time Olympians and even multiple-time Olympians looking to go to the Olympics?
Keep having fun.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
They can find me on Instagram at Summer Bell, and on TikTok and Twitter, and I think Facebook at Summer Britcher. case it might be Summer Britcher Luge.
Thank you again, Summer Britcher, for your interview, and best of luck in your future in the sport of luge.
Thank you so much. Thanks
You
for
can
having
stop-
me.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon. And you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Summer Britcher, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.